Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all, and welcome to our channel. This is our first video, and it also happens to be the first episode of our 10-day series discussing Imam Al-Husayn's uprising against the tyranny of Yazid. But before diving into the details, I find it necessary that we get a feel for who Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam really was. And a good way to do so is to examine the values that he held most dear. So for this first episode, we will examine Imam Al-Husayn's longing for freedom, justice, reform, and good government. Now, the first question that comes to mind when thinking about Imam al-Husayn's movement is why? What was the goal or purpose of his uprising? And we find the answer to that in his will to his brother, Muhammad ibn Ali, more commonly known as Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, in which he says, "And I have not risen as an insolent or an arrogant or a corrupter or a tyrant. Instead, I have risen to seek reform in my grandfather's nation. I wish to enjoin good and forbid evil." Reading this, we may ask ourselves, why is it Imam al-Husayn seeking reform in his grandfather's nation? And the answer to that is, upon the death of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, who was the caliph at the time, his son Yazid assumed the caliphate. And Yazid's ascension to the caliphate was a breach to the agreement that Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, who is Imam al-Husayn's older brother, had reached with Muawiyah. And this is not to mention that Yazid himself was a corrupt, arrogant, and immoral individual who did not heed to the idea of an opposition. So, for a majority of the Muslim nation, Yazid was clearly unfit for rule. And the first individual who refused to pay allegiance to Yazid was in fact the Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam, where he famously announced, "Someone like me does not pay allegiance to someone like him," referring to Yazid, of course. From these words, we understand that Yazid was a threat to the very existence of Islam. So, this mandated that the Prophet Muhammad's grandson and the Muslim nation's most established leader, being Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam, take action and oust Yazid from power. At the time, the city of Kufa was of major importance. It was probably the most populous city in the Islamic world, in addition to it being the city with the most political and economic influence. As soon as its people heard that Imam al-Husayn had objected to Yazid's rule, they sent letter after letter, pledging allegiance to Imam al-Husayn and asking him to come to their city. Imam al-Husayn and the people of Kufa had the same goal in mind, that is, to overthrow Yazid's brutal regime. So, with the people of Kufa offering their unwavering support, Imam al-Husayn had no option but to answer their call and head towards their city. This news troubled Yazid, of course, and prompted him to quench all opposition. In his efforts to do so, Yazid reassigned his cruel and ruthless governor of Basra, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, to become the governor of Kufa. As soon as Ibn Ziyad stepped into Kufa, he began by wiping out and imprisoning Imam al-Husayn's supporters. He even sent a large army led by Al-Hurr bin Yazid al-Riyahi to prevent Imam al-Husayn from entering Kufa or from returning to his hometown of Medina. Instead, Imam al-Husayn was to be taken to the desert of Karbala by force. In Karbala, Imam al-Husayn was given only two options, either to pledge allegiance to Yazid or to be killed. But for a noble and courageous man like Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam, there was only one real option, that is, to stand in the face of injustice and die doing so. And it was because of Imam al-Husayn's bravery and sacrifice that his legacy continues strong to this day, nearly 1400 years after his martyrdom. His story has inspired many champions of justice like Patrick Henry, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr. If there is one thing that's for sure, it's that Imam al-Husayn will always be seen as the greatest symbol for justice and truth. That's all for today. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode, in which we'll analyze how Imam al-Husayn's longing for justice has shaped modern society by comparing Patrick Henry's famous "Give me liberty or give me death" speech to Imam al-Husayn's illustrious movement. Finally, I'd like to thank you all for listening. Please don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know your thoughts, comments, questions, and concerns and suggestions in the comments section.